The Age of Disjunction. Thousands of years before the dawn of the modern age, a stellar alignment sent a starseed from the depths of space, colliding into the planet Mithron, forever transforming the world and its inhabitants. Mithron's single supercontinent shattered into 7 new ones, each twisted and torn into a new terrain of jagged mountains, crystalline lakes, and storm-swept islands. The vast temperate continent of Celandine would become the home of the Lionar Kingdoms. The lush, perilous continent of Zenkai would become the home of the Songhai Empire. The arid, desolate continent of Akram would become the home of the Vitruvian Imperium, and the shattered, broken chasms of Styxus would become the home of the Abyssian Host. The primordial volcanic continent of Magari would become the home of the Magma aspects. In the far reaches beyond the White Mountains, Halcyon would become the home of the Vanar kindred, and Istaria, the central continent, was now marked by 2 concentric rings of colossal mountains thrust up by the cataclysmic impact. At its very center, 1,000 miles across, was God's Heel, the Starseed's impact crater. The collision transformed Mithron's climate as well. Vast storms swept across the reshaped planet, unleashing torrents of acid rain and devastating lightning. Maelstroms hundreds of miles wide churned the oceans. Temperatures fluctuated wildly between blistering heat and frigid cold, causing most of Mithron's myriad life forms to perish. Those few resilient creatures that survived found sanctuary underground, or adapted to the unforgiving hellscapes of Mithron's volcanic pits. But while the cataclysm wiped out countless species, it ushered in a new one as well. At the center of the impact crater, the Starseed sent its cosmic roots into the very core of the planet, drawing on the magical energies it found there and transforming into the great tree of Ios. And that would bring changes of an even greater magnitude. The Great Tree of Ios. Over thousands of years, Mithron steadily recovered from the cataclysm of the Starseed's arrival. Creatures adapted and multiplied until the planet once again teemed with life. The great tree of Ios grew as well, drawing magical energies from the planet's core and sprouting prismatic leaves that scintillated in the starlight they absorbed for nourishment. 10,000 years after the birth of the great tree, it bloomed, producing a burst of arcane energy that bathed the planet in a radiant glow. A stunning harmonic aurora permanently painted the skies, and the great tree exploded with spectacular mana blossoms, launching iridescent petals into the air to journey the world upon Mithron's winds. Each petal carried a direct connection to the great tree. Not only did the creatures they touched gain the ability to channel the planet's arcane energy, but the great tree itself gained the power to see through their eyes. Objects that were touched turned into crystallized nodes of magical energy, with brilliant colors reflecting the metals and minerals they contained. The petals nurtured and accelerated a multitude of creatures and plants, both sentient and not. In the northern White Mountains along Halcyon, they created ancient races, like the elusive snow chasers and the fierce Draga giants. To the east in Zenkai, They transformed the interconnected network of sentient bamboo into the whistling blades, and the graceful orange cranes in the Angmar glades into the life-giving Zurai. At the end of that first great blooming, the great tree of Ios returned to a state of rest, to rebuild its magical energy. But not before 13 perfect petals drifted to the volcanic region of Magari. They landed on the exposed metallic chrysalises of the males of a rare species of sentient, drake-like creatures protected by iridium exoskeletons. Deep within the volcanic mountain, untouched and untransformed, their Queen Mother would die alone, forever removed from the rest of her species. But on the surface, these 13 males would become the immortal Magma. The rise of the Magmar aspects. After the touch of Ios, the Magma lived for hundreds of years. They also gained the ability to return to the chrysalis and be born anew, making them virtually immortal. Without their Queen Mother, they could not reproduce, but they were not leaderless. Over time, a Magma named Valknu became their alpha. Valknu, as their prime foci, discovered a way to save the Magma's deepest memories as a gift to their future selves. Each cycle required them to re-experience and reinterpret their memories in a process known as the Dance of Dreams. In order to preserve their memories through time, the Magma developed a magical song-like script that contained their collective experiences in a group consciousness known as the 13 Aspects. Over the millennia, the Magma developed a balanced philosophy of the world, a reflection of their own harmonious path to constant rebirth. They were solitary, yet spontaneous, focused on simplicity and the wonders of nature, and detached from personal desires. They mostly kept to themselves, but sometimes traveled great distances to interact with other sentient beings. Unlike other races, the Magma learned to be still and commune with the great tree of Ios, sometimes spending several kalpos, hundreds of years, to achieve dialogue with it. Thus they learned about the great blooming, and began to worship and celebrate Ios as the ultimate bringer of birth, growth, and rebirth. When meditating together and bonding with the great tree, the 13 Aspects could see out in the world and even glimpse the ephemeral tapestry of time. But doing so cost them their individual identity, their sense of self. Ultimately, they were unable to achieve complete ascension or see more than a hint of the future. Thus, they were cursed to forever repeat their lives, never fully controlling their own destinies. The Istari Spark. During the second great blooming, the great tree of Ios once again released its magical petals into the winds. Some of the enchanted petals made their way to the Vermilion Forest, where they touched an intelligent race of humanoid creatures with crimson orange hair. They called themselves the Istari, or Children of the Ineffable Flame. Within a few generations, the powers conferred upon those touched by the petals spread throughout the entire species. The Istari had a natural proclivity for wielding and channeling arcane energies, but it manifested differently in the males and the females. Istari females were better able to focus and channel magic in a continuous, sustained stream called the Binding. They could concentrate and move objects far longer than the males. Conversely, the males could amplify the intensity of magic, but only in shorter bursts, called the surging. This gave them a natural ability to phase and summon objects rather than slowly move them. But the surging consumed magical power rapidly, requiring them to either extract more energy from crystals or recover naturally by refraining from using magic until they had regained their strength. For some Istari males, however, the surging fed an innate, insatiable desire for more. To reach higher highs, to achieve greater feats, to rise above the world. But the highest levels of arcane mastery were only obtainable through the power of the crystals, which enabled them to achieve both great intensity and endurance. Most became dependent on the energy of the crystals, unable to accept their natural limitations and return to their mundane lives. The insatiable hunger for more magical power eventually consumed their everyday thoughts. The emergence of the Insakra. While most of Mithron's creatures dwelt on the surface, some that sought refuge underground during the cataclysm of the Starseed's impact simply never returned. Nevertheless, the magic petals of the great tree of Ios found their Stygian world as well. Drifting down into the dark crevasses and shattered chasms of the continent Styxus. There they transformed the subterranean world of stone into a wondrous nexus of luminous crystals that extended throughout the vast network of caverns. The iridescent petals also found a pale, snake-like race of sentient creatures called the Insakra, or the Formless Faces. Adapted over the millennia to their underground world, these scaly albino predators released clouds of psychoactive toxins that paralyzed and controlled their prey. The Insakra had become extremely sensitive to daylight. They would desiccate and burn if exposed to the sun for more than a few hours. They explored the surface only at night, and showed no desire to cross the vast, swirling ocean separating them from Mithron's other developing civilizations. The underworld was deadly and treacherous, and the creatures that adapted to it were equally so. But the echoing depths offered immense treasures as well. Ancient crystals formed during the first bloom of the great tree of Ios. Smoky purple gems that formed alongside the plant-like inkhorn, black amethysts that accompanied the dark creep moss, and even the rare ghost azaleas and their potent concentrated magical energies. The Insakra had learned that these crystals would imbue them with properties of their prey through a transformative ritual they called Krasul. During each shedding cycle, the Insakra created even deadlier forms of themselves, incorporating the most lethal elements of their previously consumed prey. Over time, as the Insakra continued to absorb their prey, the species began to diverge. The males sought as quarry the most dangerous predators, and grew more and more vicious with each generation. The females hunted not for sport, but to feed themselves and their young. While they could be devastatingly violent in defense of their brood, they never developed the Krasul heightened malevolence of the males. The First Empire. Sheltered from danger in the central crater of God's Heel, the Istari lived for centuries in peace and harmony. With no competition for resources, their population thrived and prospered. Small, isolated villages became towns interconnected across the sanctuary plains. During this age of wonder, creativity in the arts and knowledge of magic flourished, spawning myriad specializations and schools of thought. The Istari established the Seventh Sanctum, their primary center for learning. It was comprised of 7 branched disciplines. School of Knowledge. The Alcuin Order, first line of the Lore Masters, was established to further a deeper understanding of the world. School of Harmony. The swords of Arcane and the twin crescents both refined various forms of swordsmanship, harmoniously blending magic with bodily motion, incorporating the fluid duality of the visible and invisible, the physical and non-physical. School of Timelessness. After years of intense meditation, the Chakri avatars learned to commune with the Great Tree. They could heighten their sense of power almost indefinitely, and even see visions of the past and the future. School of Selflessness. The first Shield Masters, protectors and defenders of the people, were focused on piety, integrity, honor, and mutual respect. School of Power. Artificers and song weavers learned to concentrate the power of the crystals and imbue inanimate objects with their energy, creating powerful artifacts and magical items. School of Dreams. Istari Mistwalkers and Aether Masters developed the ability to astral phase through alternate micro-dimensions, cast illusions, and summon creatures. School of Order. The Arcanists harness the power contained within magical components and scripts, discovering spells that enhanced one's natural abilities, and inventing mixtures such as the highly sought-after Sundrop Elixir and Aurora's Tears. During this age of wonder, the first Istari chroniclers explored the mountains beyond their central continent, recording all they discovered. This age of wonder also saw the Magma grow into their rightful role as Mithron's protectors, to meditate, interpret, and guide the Istari leaders. The darkness gnaws below. While the Istari Age of Wonder was flowering on the surface of Mithron, a more sinister development was unfolding beneath it. The Insakra had embraced with great enthusiasm their role as the apex predator of the underworld. And as their supremacy became unquestioned, their thirst to exercise it became unquenchable. Powered by the magic of crystals of the black amethysts, the Krasul transformation that followed each act of predation not only conferred on the Insakra the strengths and abilities of their prey, it flooded the predators with physical pleasure that bordered on ecstasy. Over time, this magnified and exaggerated their primal predatory instincts. The male Insakra and female Insakra both came to be driven by an insatiable, all-consuming hunger for the feeling of youthful rejuvenation that came from killing. The gnawing, addictive power of the crystals and their growing scarcity caused infighting among the Insakra. A system of rigid castes was established to create order, to preserve the crystals, and to help the Insakra survive and remain preeminent in a world fraught with danger and dwindling resources. The elation and rush of killing and transformation became a ritual, taking on a sacred significance that made the Insakra even more rapacious. The male Insakra became increasingly defined by an ethos of cruelty. Lesser sentient creatures and captured enemies from raids became slaves or playthings, including the Insakra's less evolved cousins, the Serpenti, which the Insakra often transformed into tortured darkspine elementals and familiar-like wraithlings. Meanwhile, the female Insakra grew more social and increasingly repulsed by the Insakra's random brutality. Over generations, the differences grew so pronounced they were like two separate species, the male Insakra and the female Insakra, whose only contact was to perpetuate their species. The prophetic paradox. As the Age of Wonder drew to a close, the Istari matron magus, Duelyst, having mastered all 7 schools of the 7th Sanctum, retreated to the top of Ivory Peak to meditate. After a decade, she had gained the ability to commune with the Great Tree of Ios, and the Great Tree observed her thoughts and actions closely as well. It deemed her virtuous, worthy by deed, mind, and spirit. Kaon returned to the 7th Sanctum by teleportation, becoming Mithron's first Horizon Walker. Years later, as Duelyst was dream-weaving at the White Mantle, she received from the Great Tree a devastating prophecy of ages. It foretold the destruction of the Istari civilization in a coming age of decay, a time of chaos and unfathomable suffering that would last a millennia. But while the age of decay was inevitable, the tapestry of Kaon's dream contained a single thread of hope. A way that the age of decay could be shortened to a single century, to be followed by an even greater civilization built atop the foundation of the First Empire. But the price for this would be terrible indeed. It would mean forsaking forever her harmonious meditation and near immortality. It would cost her ongoing ascension, her connection with the Great Tree, and even her ability to horizon walk. More importantly, she wondered if her actions to spare the world such suffering, to save 9 centuries of unborn lives, could bring about something unimaginably worse. Kaon struggled with the paradox of the prophecy. In the end, she decided that the chance to prevent such suffering was the only path forward, even though the task it demanded was too horrific to speak of. The demand of the prophecy was that the heart of the Great Tree of Ios must be removed, cut out, and placed as far away as possible, never to return to Istari soil again. The first Senarai. The prophecy of ages foretold 7 seeds that would change the course of history. 7 heroes to complete the task at hand. To find them, Duelyst established the first trial of champions, A 6-week contest of strength and endurance, intelligence and honor. The winners would be called the Samurai, the 7 Stars. The trial of champions revealed the finest warriors in all of Istari, head and shoulders above all others. Many Istari distinguished themselves as Vanar, a legendary elite, yet only a select few displayed the heroic excellence necessary to earn the title of Samurai. They represented the best in each of their respective disciplines. Their unquestioned leader was Songweaver Uriel. Joining her was Lore Master Lumina, Sword Master Zui, Avatar Sari, Arcanist Grey, and Shield Master Corildir. But to Kaon's consternation, they numbered only 6. Kaon held one more week of trials, but no one else proved worthy. She wondered if there could be only 6. But if she was wrong about that, what else had she misinterpreted? She began to question the entire prophecy, until a towering silhouette entered the arena, carrying a twin-bladed sword, a Magma. Kaon greeted him respectfully, but said, "You must go. You are not Istari." He didn't move. "I am Starhorn," he said. "The 7th star foretold by the prophecy." Kaon turned to the Vanar elites and said, "Whoever defeats this Magma shall join the Samurai." The Magma was monstrously massive, but when the warriors came at him, he maneuvered with blinding speed and subtle grace. He touched no one, but let none touch him. After a full day, as the last Vanar finally collapsed in exhaustion, Kaon said, "Enough! Starhorn, most honored Magma, you are indeed the seed of dreams, the 7th star." The Great Tree Aperion. Advancing in years and rapidly losing her powers, Kaon Deladris traveled with the Samurai to the Great Tree of Ios to fulfill the prophecy. In anguish, she extracted its hardwood, a perfectly brilliant prismatic seed the size of a small fist. Immediately, the great tree shrank and withered. Its starry leaves turned crimson red. Stricken with grief, Kaon gave the hardwood to the Samurai so that they could fulfill the rest of the prophecy. She remained with the great tree, mourning, until her dying days. For many years, the Samurai journeyed across the vast world of Mithron, seeking the perfect sanctuary for the hardwood. Amid the lush beauty of Zenkai, they befriended the 4 winds and tasted the rejuvenating waters of the Twilight Spring. Among the islands of Pyre, they rediscovered the lost arts of fire-weaving. Hidden in the Sea of Fog, they found the exotic islands of Ikir, where master inventors and artificers worked in solitude, crafting the first magical devices that their descendants would prize as ancient artifacts. They landed on the desolate surface of Styxus, naming it the Blighted Lands. They were the first Istari invited to Magari, the Magma homeland, to behold the golden chrysalis containing the remains of the last Queen Mother. They traveled along the Equim River, allying themselves with the Silver Beaks near Wraithline Lake against a horde of Merc-blood devourers. They witnessed Azurite lions hunting across the alluvial plains. And after many years of encountering strange creatures, discovering countless locales, and witnessing mysterious cultures, the Senarai finally arrived at Halcyon, the northernmost realm, far past the frost-carved White Mountains, and more importantly, far beyond the prying reach of Istari. They found a distant peak, enveloped by the magical northern aurora, hidden and shielded on all sides by hundreds of identical mountains. They named it Duelyst Peak, in honor of Kaon, and there they planted the Heartwood, a sapling immediately sprouted from the ground, its young leaves drawing in the crisp starlight. They named the new tree Aperion. At that exact moment, Kaon dematerialized from the living world. All Astaria was plunged into mourning. The once great tree, now withered and weak, released red droplets of crimson sap, the tears of Ios, and forever after was known as the Weeping Tree.